Today's Q&A is about citrus scale, and the question is, some people in Israel say that you shouldn't eat the scale insects that are on citrus fruit, and I want to know if that's an issue here in the U.S., and the answer is like this. Citrus scale are a class of insects. They attack fruit and sometimes the leaves of oranges, grapefruits, and other citrus fruits. Each little teeny insect, each of these scale insects, attaches to the fruit. It lowers a rostrum that's like sort of like a feeding tube. It looks like the size of a hair. It's a feeding tube into the fruit, and then it sucks juice out of the fruit, which is what it lives off of. Once it's attached to the fruit, it excretes like wax-like covering or shield onto the side of it that's exposed to the outside, meaning away from the fruit, and then it remains there immobile and attached to that same spot for the rest of its life. That outside waxy cover is black, tends to be black and round, and that's why it's called a citrus scale. It's somehow that covering is called a scale. If you know what you're doing, you could peel off this cover. You might even be able to get the insect out also. And it's not like a fruit is discolored. You can't peel off the discoloration, but this is something that's could potentially be removed. Okay, and there's two shilas that have to do with citrus scale. The first is that the Shulchan Aruch says in Pei Dalet Chavav that if an insect lives his whole life on a fruit and it never moves, then that insect is mutter. Citrus scales seem to be an example of that because they just park themselves. They never move their whole lives. The two arguments against it are, firstly, is that it's possible that the citrus scale are visible when they crawl onto the fruit in their very first stage of their lives, which is to say, is once they get born, they're not born in that spot, they're born someplace else, and they crawl onto the fruit, and from that they don't move. So it's a question whether they're visible at that point when they're moving. And also the Ramah argues with the Mechaber and says that the insects that didn't move are going to be usher anyhow. The second halachic issue is that the scale insects, or I don't know about the insects themselves, but for sure the wax covering are visible to the naked eye. But someone who looked at them would not, the average person who looks at them would not notice that this is an insect unless they were magnified. They don't have any legs or anything else that would make them look like insects. And whether an insect of that size is usher is a question in the poskim. The different places to look for details on that shaila. One of them is a footnote in Shur Shabbos Kechasin Perek Gimel. Most Israeli poskim take the stricter approach on this question, and others take a more lenient about this question. And it's also very intertwined with whether they're visible when they're in their first instar stage. That's the first stage when they're able to crawl around. Now, good news here in the United States is that growers use all kinds of pesticides and natural predators to make sure that there are no citrus scales on the oranges, etc., those kind of fruits. So for most of us, it's not so. Most people in the United States, the question is not so relevant for fruit that they eat. It seems in Eretz Yisrael that's more common. So therefore, the people there, the Rabbanim tell their people that they should take the scale off before they eat them, or peel the fruit and make sure none of the insects end up back into the food that they're eating from. Here in the United States, even though there's not common to find citrus scale on the actual fruit, on fruit that we eat, it is more common in fruit that's used for juicing, because there, no one's ever, or at least the ones that are used commercially, or even, I guess, even the retail ones, people are not so particular about how the fruit looks because they're going to be used for juicing. Now, juice companies filter juice before they bottle it. That gets out lots of the citrus scales. But, of course, there are some that will slip through. And that opens up a different type of question. If we assume that the citrus scale are usher, like we just mentioned before, and assuming that they're usher, are they mixed into the juice in a way that qualifies them as a taruvas, in which case they would be batal, or am I mechuyev to filter them out, to filter them all out, is that considered to have a possible way of separating the isser from the heter and the taruvas? Those shilas are way beyond today's Q&A, but I'm just mentioning what the possible issues that are with this item.